Christian Aguilar was 18 years old and just started college at the University of Florida. He got a scholarship to study biomedical engineering there because he was very smart. His brother said he was shy at first but really funny and charming once he got comfortable with people. Christian and his friend Erica Freeman, who he knew since school, started dating when they both were in Gainesville for college. They became really close after that. Carlos, Christian's father, said he had never seen his son so happy as when he was dating her. Erica described them as soulmates and believed that one day they would get married. September 20th, 2012 would seemingly start as any other day. As usual, as soon as Erica finished her classes, she sent Christian a text message to arrange a meetup. At this point, they'd been dating a little while, but their relationship was blossoming and they spent every day together. Always quick to respond, when Erica didn't hear back from Christian, she became a little concerned. Telling herself he must have been busy with something, she headed back to her apartment alone. Several hours would pass, however, and despite many calls and texts, Erica still had no idea where he was. She now knew something was wrong and walked to his dorm room to ask his roommate if he had seen him. Hours would pass with no word from Christian, and just after 4 a.m., Erica rang Christian's childhood friend, Pedro Bravo. The boys had gone shopping the day before, but Pedro said they had parted ways in the afternoon, and he hadn't heard from him since. Frantic with worry, she decided to phone Christian's father, Carlos, 300 miles away in Miami, praying he might have heard from his son. But Carlos hadn't either, and knowing his son and how out of character this was, he and Christian's mother, Claudia, immediately set off to Gainesville, Florida. Just before 10 a.m. the next day, September 21st, Erica and Pedro met with Officer Timothy Peck of the University of Florida's police department to report Christian as missing. Christian, Erica, and Pedro had all known each other since attending Doral Academy together. Before we proceed, I've got an exciting surprise for you. We've launched a brand new channel dedicated to intriguing content such as old historical mysteries, cold cases, and particularly chilling horror stories perfect for bedtime. Drop a comment letting us know if you're a fan of horror stories or not. You can find the link in the description below. Let's find out who will be the first to explore it. Alright, let's dive back into the video. Pedro and Erica had dated prior to her relationship with Christian. It hadn't worked out and she had ended the relationship shortly before going to college. Although Pedro had been upset about the breakup, he soon moved to Gainesville himself, and it appeared that the trio from school were back together. Christian and Erica had yet to tell Pedro about their relationship and were waiting for him to be in a better place mentally before they broke the news. Growing more concerned by the hour, Erica made the police aware that Christian had suffered from depression, and this rang more alarm bells. They wondered if maybe Christian had attempted to hurt himself in some way, so officers headed out to his apartment. They found absolutely nothing. Not a thing was out of place, and there were no obvious signs of anything being disturbed. Pedro and Erica were both interviewed separately. Pedro said that the previous day he and Christian had left campus in Pedro's car. Christian got his flu shot, and then they had driven to a Best Buy store to buy a CD and grab some lunch. The boys got into a verbal argument in Pedro's car, so Pedro dropped Christian off on a street and drove home by himself, and he hadn't heard from him since. As well as Erica, Carlos, Christian's father, rang Pedro too to get the story. Pedro didn't know Gainesville very well, having only just enrolled in college there, and he couldn't remember the name of the street, so he tried describing the location as best he could. The area that Pedro appeared to be talking about was quite notorious, known for crime and drugs, and police began to worry that something had happened to him there. Police checked the CCTV cameras from Best Buy and quickly picked the pair up. Just as Pedro had said on September 20th at around 3 p.m., Best Buy showed them both drinking coffee, browsing the aisles, and chatting to each other. But after this, there was nothing. Hundreds of cameras from all over the neighborhood that Pedro said he dropped him off in were still being checked. Days' worth of footage from local businesses and homes were being gone through with a fine-tooth comb, and Christian wasn't on a single one of them. Christian's family, volunteers, and multiple police departments in Florida were now searching for the missing freshman. One camera from a local car wash did pick up someone of interest, but it wasn't Christian as they had hoped. It was Pedro. Pedro had told police that he left Christian on the side of the road and driven straight home, but a camera from outside a car wash picked him up, power washing his car, at 2 a.m. Police were drawing a blank and needed Pedro to explain. Pedro suddenly added more to his story. Despite Erica and Christian thinking they had kept their relationship a secret, Pedro told the police that he had recently found out that the pair were dating, and this had resulted in a fight that had become physical. After finding out that his ex-girlfriend and good friend were now dating, it had upset him. Pedro said that he hit Christian in the face, causing his nose to bleed all over the car. He said that after they had fought for a while, he kicked him out of the car and left him on the side of the road, almost unconscious, and drove away. Following this version of events, on the 24th of September, Pedro was placed under arrest for depriving a crime victim of medical care. This also gave officers more time to look into Pedro's claims, because his story just wasn't adding up. CCTV cameras were still drawing a blank about Christian's location after Pedro had left him. But one thing remained clear. The last person known to have seen him was Pedro. Alongside the blood in his car and the footage of him washing his vehicle at 2 a.m., police were looking at Pedro for more answers. Officers obtained a warrant to search his apartment. What they found truly shocked them. A receipt dated just a few days before Christian was last seen was retrieved. Following up on the date and time on the receipt, CCTV cameras had picked Pedro up. He was seen buying a shovel, duct tape, and sleeping pills. Also found in Pedro's apartment was Christian's backpack. Although they had yet to find Christian, they knew that he was no longer alive, and this was now a murder investigation. The evidence was irrefutable. Pedro Bravo was subsequently arrested for Christian's murder. After 3 weeks of searching in an area around 60 miles from Gainesville, local hunters found human remains buried in a shallow grave. Using dental records, it was confirmed that the body was Christian Aguilar. An autopsy confirmed that he had been strangled, and his ankles and wrists were both bound with duct tape. Pedro Bravo was still being investigated for the murder. But how? And why had things possibly come to this? It all started years prior when Pedro Bravo developed a dangerous obsession with his now ex-girlfriend, Erica Freeman. Pedro was fixated with Erica, and when she broke up with him, he spent the next few months campaigning to win her back. When he found out that she had moved on, he set a plan in motion to remove Christian from the picture. Erica and Pedro had began dating as sophomores. Although initially things seemed to be going well, Erica became unhappy and decided she needed to end the relationship. She tried to break up with him several times, but Pedro warned her that things would never be the same if she left him. Out of fear, Erica agreed to stay. However, as Erica and Pedro made plans to go to different colleges, Erica felt that this was now the right time to end the relationship and go their separate ways. Erica enrolled at Santa Fe Community College in Gainesville. She and Christian bumped into each other and a romance quickly blossomed. But just a few months into their time in Gainesville, Pedro turned up there too. He was originally set to attend Florida International University, hundreds of miles away, but quickly decided to transfer to Santa Fe Community College to try and win Erica back. But Erica and Christian were now dating and very happy together. Pedro asked Erica several times if her and Christian were together, but Erica said they were just friends. The pair were conscious of Pedro's state of mind, as he was clearly still mentally in a bad place. Pedro had frequently spoken about committing suicide after the breakup. So Erica and Christian decided to keep the relationship a secret until they felt Pedro was ready to accept it and in a better headspace. Little did they know, Pedro was already well aware of the relationship and was completely consumed and enraged by it. Another item was recovered from the search of Pedro's apartment. It was a journal. It showed the extent of his obsessive thoughts and feelings and the lengths he was willing to go to. Endless pages of drawings, poems, quotes, and lyrics. Love letters to Erica and threats to Christian filled the book. Paragraphs and paragraphs of speeches saying things such as, "I can do this. I believe in myself. I will do it. I can win her back. I will win her back. No one will stop me. I will get into Gainesville and get her back. I will get out of Miami and into University of Florida." One entry from July read, "I'm scared she might end up with Chris." He then wrote underneath, "You are overreacting again." Remember that Chris goes to University of Florida and Erica goes to Santa Fe. So limited conversation and contact. Plus, they don't talk much and he lives on campus. They got separate classes and schools. Plus, you have time. His obsession with the pair of them was growing and completely consuming his life. On September 20th, Pedro had contacted Christian asking if he wanted to meet with him and go shopping. Pedro told Christian he wanted to confide in him about his depression and suicidal thoughts and get his advice. Worrying that he may have been trying to meet him to talk about his relationship with Erica, Christian was hesitant about going. But eventually, he decided he would go as the pair would be out in a public place and it felt safe. In the parking lot of Walmart as they sat in Pedro's car, Pedro subdued Christian using sleeping pills in a bottle of Gatorade and strangled him with a belt. Pedro's phone showed that he was in the Walmart car park for 2 hours that afternoon. He then put his phone in airplane mode for 5 hours and drove to a swampy area where he attempted to bury him. Logs from his iPhone 4 showed that the torch had been used 9 times for a total of 48 minutes that night. On the way home, Pedro stopped to get food at McDonald's and then went to wash the dirt off his car. But experts managed to find soil in the undercarriage of the vehicle. The shovel Pedro was seen buying also matched the soil that surrounded Christian's remains. In August 2014, almost 2 years since Christian's body was found, the trial of Pedro Bravo began. He entered a not guilty plea. Pedro's former cellmate, Michael Angelo, took the stand and testified that Pedro had told him it had taken him 13 minutes to kill Christian, and he had originally had several plans for how he was going to carry out the violent attack. Michael also led officers to where Pedro had told him he had hidden the shovel under a wooden walkway at his apartment complex. He said at one point Pedro panicked as he almost got caught by a security guard driving past the vehicle as he was strangling Christian. A big moment in the courtroom was the showing of a screenshot of the iPhone feature Hey Siri. Although it was initially reported that Pedro had asked Siri questions relating to the awful act he would go on to commit, Gainesville police and experts disputed that. The screenshot in question had been viewed using the phone, but it had been viewed via Facebook. Pedro had an iPhone 4 which did not have Siri compatibility. The footage was eventually pulled from the courtroom. The defense team argued that although Pedro had a physical altercation with Christian and was wrong to leave him at the side of the road, he most definitely didn't kill him. Pedro had said that the duct tape was being used to seal a crack in the window of his car, and the shovel was brought with the intention of him killing himself and digging his own grave. Pedro claimed he tried to kill himself after his fight with Christian by drinking a concoction of painkillers and pesticide. He quickly threw up and said he took it as a sign from God that it wasn't his time to go. But the case against Pedro was too strong. DNA and forensic evidence, CCTV footage, his journal, and a pattern of very disturbing, and Pedro Bravo was convicted of first-degree murder, poisoning, false imprisonment, tampering with evidence, giving false information to authorities, and improper transportation of human remains. The judge sentenced Pedro Bravo to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Although he didn't take his own life, Pedro did write a suicide note in prison that was found by a prison guard. An extract of the note read, "I'm a monster for hurting Chris." Despite this and the confession he gave to his former cellmate, Pedro still denied killing Christian upon his sentencing. He said God knows the truth about what happened. Throughout the trial, Pedro continuously attempted to contact the Aguilar family and Erica, and upon his sentencing, Carlos Aguilar begged the judge to help prevent him from ever contacting his family or Erica again. The Aguilar family were relieved and satisfied with the verdict. Carlos said, "The verdict will not bring my son back, but Pedro was held accountable. I promised Christian at his burial there would be justice." The funeral for Christian Aguilar was held in Miami. It was open to the public and packed out. A kind and loving young man with a life full of such promise was cut so dreadfully short. Erica Freeman said of Christian, "He was such a good person, so kind and so compassionate. I always feel like when I describe him, I'm never describing him enough. You had to meet him. What do you think about it? Tell us your thoughts in comments below. Let's continue." Before we continue, 90% of you haven't subscribed to our channel, so if you like this video, please subscribe. It motivates us to make more content for you. Okay, let's continue. On November 6, 1967, Dana and Benson Schaefer became parents to their daughter, Rebecca Lucille, who was their only child. They loved her very much. Rebecca's dad, Benson, worked as a child psychologist, and her mom, Dana, had a job at Portland Community College. Rebecca grew up in Oregon in a Jewish family. At first, she thought about becoming a rabbi because she wanted to connect her faith with helping others. She loved the outdoor life, especially horse riding, and this is something her and her father bonded even more over. As she moved into her junior year, Rebecca started modeling and acting in amateur dramatic clubs. Her big smile and striking brown eyes shone through in her photo shoots, and her future career in front of the camera was starting to form. She appeared in adverts for department store catalogs as well as TV commercials. But she soon decided it was time for a change. She spoke to her parents about fulfilling a career as a full-time model, and they agreed. Aged just 16, she took a big leap. She moved across the country, alone, to the city of dreams, New York. With its bright lights, big atmosphere, and social buzz, New York was where many a hopeful performer would go in a bid to further their careers. Although her parents were understandably nervous, Rebecca said to her father, "Sometimes you have to choose between adventure and regret." Although the city was big and overwhelming, 16-year-old Rebecca was more than a match for it. Within the first week of living there, she saw a strange man pacing in the subway with a sharpened screwdriver. A terrified young woman was sat in front of her, and Rebecca hurried over, pretending to know the girl, and said, "It's so great to see you. Let's go get a coffee," and pulled her up the stairs. As she settled into her new life in the Big Apple, she began attending the Professional Children's School. The elite Professional Children's School educates children who work in the entertainment industry and boasted stars such as Carrie Fisher and Christopher Walken as part of their prestigious alumni. It wasn't long before her perseverance and hard work paid off. In 1984, she got her first big break. She booked a 6-month recurring role in the ABC soap opera One Life to Live, playing Annie Barnes. After this, she landed a small role in Radio Days, the famous Woody Allen comedy. Sadly, her performance was edited from the film, and only a brief scene which features her remains. Despite her early success as a model, she soon found herself coming up against the tough expectations of the fashion industry. She stood at 5 feet 7 inches, and many agencies considered her to be too short to model for high fashion. She struggled to find further work, so she decided to leave New York. In 1985, she made another ambitious move, this time to Japan, to try and add more to her modeling portfolio, but once again, her height and weight were considered a problem. After this, she decided to return to New York and focus solely on her acting dreams. Undeterred, she started working as a waitress to support herself in between acting jobs, and carried on auditioning wherever and whenever she could. She was sharing an apartment with 5 other people, and just as her phone line got cut, she booked a big role. She had recently shot for the popular 17 magazine, which caught the attention of TV producers. They were casting for the comedy My Sister Sam, starring Pam Dorber, who had become a household name thanks to the hit show Mork and Mindy. Rebecca auditioned and won the role of the feisty and funny Patty Russell, a teenager who makes the journey to live with her sister Sam after the death of their parents. Her life changed instantly, and she flew to Los Angeles to start filming the CBS show. Her parents couldn't be prouder of her move to Hollywood and were a little more relieved now she was living closer to them, as well as her grandfather, who was living nearby in West Hollywood. The pilot of My Sister Sam aired in October 1986 and had a great time slot in between 2 already very popular shows. She and co-star Pam immediately hit it off, and Pam took 18-year-old Rebecca under her wing, eventually moving her into her house. Rebecca was bright and bubbly and immediately popular with audiences. She became the spokesperson for Thursday's Child, an organization that helps children and teenagers with various issues, including eating disorders, abuse, and suicide. Appearing on various chat shows, magazine covers, and even hosting the Thanksgiving parade for CBS, Pam Dorber could see Rebecca's life as a new and young celebrity was rapidly changing. Pam often gave her advice on how to navigate the celebrity world. Pam herself had issues with stalking and obsessive fans in the past, and said she and the team told Rebecca, "You're on a hit show. We're gonna go on this show for a while. You never put your real name on your mailbox, Rebecca. Never put your real name on your mailbox. In 1987, while shooting My Sister Sam, the security at Warner Brothers Studios phoned Rebecca's team and asked if she knew a man that had come to meet her. 19-year-old Robert John Bardo had turned up to the set carrying roses and a huge teddy bear and claimed he knew the actress and wanted to see her. Rebecca confirmed she didn't know him and they did not allow him entry. Robert said he was frustrated as he couldn't understand why Rebecca would turn him away. A month later, Robert returned to Warner Brothers, this time extremely agitated and carrying a knife. Security were now aware of who he was and again stopped him from getting in. He was taken into the security office and was told he needed to stop as the obsession he had for the actress was going too far. The head of security was concerned and informed the production company about what had happened. Rebecca continued on with her life and various filming projects. Although My Sister Sam initially was a success with viewers, it was sadly canceled in 1988, halfway through the second season, leaving many episodes unaired. The show had changed its time slot and this impacted it massively. Rebecca was disappointed but continued to throw herself into auditioning. She was then cast in a string of roles including scenes from the class struggle in Beverly Hills, The End of Innocence and the television film Out of Time. July 18, 1989, 21-year-old Rebecca was now living in a West Hollywood apartment. As well as her career going from strength to strength, her personal life was in a great place too. She met 23-year-old TV and film director Brad Silberling on a blind date at UCLA Film School, and Brad said the chemistry was instant. Brad Silberling went on to direct many successful TV shows and films, including Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events and City of Angels, and the talented young duo had talks of moving in together. On July 18th, Rebecca was prepping for a big audition for The Godfather Part 3, and was waiting for the script to be delivered to her door. When she heard the doorbell ring, she quickly answered. But it wasn't the script delivery she was hoping for. Stood in front of her was Robert John Bardo. It was the same man who had appeared twice at Warner Brothers Studios, and he was clutching a letter and autograph she had once sent to him. Robert John Bardo was born in January 1970. The youngest of 7 children, he had a troubled childhood. After being abused by a sibling, he was placed in foster care when he spoke about committing suicide and was eventually diagnosed with bipolar disorder. At the age of 15, he was briefly institutionalized to treat emotional problems and dropped out of school shortly after. Robert was only 19 years old and had developed a dangerous obsession with Rebecca Schaefer. He was infatuated with a child peace activist, Samantha Smith, who was tragically killed in a plane crash in 1985. When she passed away, his attention turned to Rebecca. He started writing numerous letters to her after seeing her on a commercial for My Sister Sam. One of his letters she replied to, telling him it was one of the nicest letters she had ever got. What started as him being a fan of the character Patty quickly turned into a fixation with the actress Rebecca. He watched and taped every episode of My Sister Sam and bought every magazine he could find with her in. His room quickly became almost a shrine to the actress. He traveled by bus to Los Angeles in 1987, hoping to meet her on the set of My Sister Sam. But failing to get past security twice, he returned to Tucson and briefly lost interest with the actress. His obsession shifted towards artists, Debbie Gibson, Madonna, and Tiffany Darwish. In 1989, Robert watched Rebecca in the comedy, Scenes from the Class Struggle in Beverly Hills. In one scene, she appeared in bed with a male actor. Robert became so enraged and jealous by the scene, he decided that she needed to be punished for becoming, in his words, another Hollywood whore. The teenage Robert wrote a disturbing letter to his sister, saying if he couldn't have Rebecca then, he wouldn't allow anyone else to. Part of the letter read, "I have an obsession with the unattainable, and I have to eliminate something I cannot attain." After trying and failing to get Rebecca's address through her agent, Robert came across an article in People magazine which gave him a new idea. Arthur Richard Jackson had stalked and stabbed actress Teresa Saldana in 1982, and through the article in People magazine, Robert learned that Arthur had used a private investigator to obtain her address. Fortunately, Teresa Saldana survived the frightening attack and went on to found the victims, for she also participated in lobbying for the 1990 anti-stalking law and the 1994 Driver's Privacy Protection Act. Robert decided to use the same method as Arthur Jackson and paid a detective agency $250 to find Rebecca's address using DMV records. His brother helped him get hold of a gun after Robert himself was refused. Due to being too young and disclosing mental health problems on a form he had to fill out at the gun shop. For a third and final time, Robert traveled to Los Angeles and stayed in the neighborhood where Rebecca lived, showing people pictures of her and asking neighbors if she actually lived there. Once he was certain that her address was correct, on the morning of July 18th, he rang her doorbell just after 10 a.m. This encounter clearly unnerved Rebecca. She politely shook his hand and was pleasant to him, but asked him never to come to her home again. Robert was shocked and went to a nearby diner to have some food before returning to her apartment an hour later. He claimed he did this as he had forgotten to give her a cassette tape. According to Robert himself, she answered the door again but had a cold look on her face. Robert said, "She had this kid voice, sounded like a little brat or something, said I was wasting her time. No matter what, I thought that was a very callous thing to say to a fan." Without warning, he pulled out a gun and shot her in the heart at point-blank range. According to Robert, she fell to the floor of her doorway, screaming, "Why?" Robert Bardo fled the scene, and shortly after, Rebecca's neighbor, who had heard the shot and the blood-curdling scream, rushed to the doorway. He felt no pulse and phoned 911. She was swiftly taken to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, but there was nothing they could do. 21-year-old Rebecca Schaefer was pronounced dead just 30 minutes after arriving. The following day in Tucson, several motorists phoned police to report a man running through traffic on Interstate 10. It was Robert Bardo. He told officers he was devastated by the death of Rebecca Schaefer and was acting out because of it. An incredibly suspicious thing to say, police faxed an image of Robert over to the LA detectives, who confirmed this was the man they were looking for. After hearing about the murder of Rebecca on the news, Robert's sister told police about the letter he had written to her. He was promptly arrested and extradited to California. He confessed immediately to what he had done. He was charged with first-degree murder, and prosecutor Marcia Clark would take on the trial 2 years later. Marcia became most well known for being part of the prosecution team on the O.J. Simpson trial in 1995, defending Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman. In Robert's case, she pushed hard for what is known as a bench trial. This means that the outcome would be decided by a judge rather than a jury. Robert Bardo agreed to this in exchange for the death penalty being taken off the table. Steve Galindo, a veteran public defender, was in charge of Robert's defense team. Judge Dino Fulgoni presided, and he was reported to be one of the top legal experts on psychiatric evidence in the state of California. Despite his confession, Robert still pled not guilty. His defense team argued he could not have premeditated the murder due to his mental health issues, something Marcia was keen to disprove. The defense team called psychiatrist Dr. Dietz to the stand, and he claimed that Robert may have schizophrenia and that is what may have led him to commit the crime. Marcia Clark hoped to prove that he did in fact plan the killing over several months. Robert was carrying a copy of The Catcher in the Rye when he shot Rebecca, which he threw onto the roof of a building as he ran away. He insisted that it was purely coincidental, even though it emulated Mark David Chapman, who had also been carrying a copy with him when he shot and killed John Lennon. Came out that during the 18 months before he killed Rebecca, he had been arrested 3 times and charged with domestic violence and disorderly conduct. His neighbors also said that he had exhibited unwarranted threatening behavior towards them. Judge Fulgoni agreed with the prosecution. Marcia Clark's hard work paid off, and in October 1991, Robert John Bardo was found guilty of the murder of Rebecca Schaefer. On December 20th, 1991, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. A year after the murder, Robert gave an interview in which he said, "Rebecca was buried in Portland, Oregon, and her service was attended by over 300 people. Her death influenced her boyfriend at the time, Brad Silberling, to write and direct the film Moonlight Mile, about a man's journey with grief after his fiancée is murdered." As a consequence of Robert obtaining Rebecca's address, as well as Arthur Jackson getting Teresa Saldana's details through the use of private detectives, the U.S. Congress passed the Driver's Privacy Protection Act in 1994. This prohibits state departments of motor vehicles from disclosing the home address of state residents. The case also prompted the 1990 passage of America's first anti-stalking laws. In 2007, Robert Bardo was stabbed 11 times in the maximum security unit at Mule Creek State Prison in California. He was treated and survived, returning to jail soon after. As of 2020, he is serving his time at the Avenal State Prison in Avenal, California. He frequently draws artwork of famous people, including Rebecca Schaefer. She fought hard for her dreams and the career that she adored so much. The drive she had would have undoubtedly continued to push her forward. Immensely talented and ambitious, she had much more to achieve both personally and professionally. Her tragic and untimely death prompted some big and much-needed changes in the law, and her vibrant and kind-hearted spirit is kept alive by those that knew and loved her. What do you think about it? Tell us your thoughts in comments below. Let's continue. Faith Danielle Hedgepeth was born on September 26, 1992, in Warren County. She belonged to the Hail-Wasaponi Native American tribe and was the daughter of Connie and Roland. Faith had two brothers, Caleb and Chad, and a sister named Rolanda. Her parents split up when she was very young, so she grew up with her mom and older sister. Faith adored her parents, and her father Roland said she was the light of his life. Faith had been born at a difficult time in Roland's life when he had been battling addiction, and he said that her being born was the gift from God that gave him a reason to live. She was an honor student and earned herself a Gates Millennium Scholarship to attend the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, majoring in biology. Her father had attended the same university but had dropped out, and Faith was hoping to become the first person in her family to graduate from college. Faith had dreams of becoming either a pediatrician or a teacher, and was described as lively, bubbly, and always looking to give back to people in any way she could. She found the workload at university initially difficult, falling behind in some of her studies. Undeterred and refusing to give up, however, she started working 2 jobs to support herself, changed her major, and threw herself back into obtaining her degree. She lived off campus in an apartment at Hawthorne at the View. She lived on the 2nd floor, room 1502, and lived with her friend since first year, Karina Rosario. As well as living with Karina, known to most as Rosario or Rosie, Karina's boyfriend, Eric Tacoy Jones, also lived there for a time. Eric and Karina's relationship was a volatile one, and they eventually broke up and Eric moved out. He attempted to break into the apartment twice despite Karina changing the locks. Faith eventually drove Karina to court to obtain a protective order against Eric. This order prevented him from coming anywhere near the apartment. However, when he moved out, he moved into another apartment on the same complex, so was still living very close to the girls. September 6, 2012 started as any normal day. Faith attended all of her classes and then went to an event for Alpha Pi Omega. Alpha Pi Omega is the nation's largest and oldest Native American sorority, and Faith was hoping to one day join. She left the event at 7:15 to continue working on a history paper about her tribe. At 8 p.m., she and roommate Karina went to the campus library for more studying. Faith briefly left the library, leaving Karina there, but returned at 11:30 p.m., and both girls made their way back to the apartment at midnight. About half an hour later, they set off to a nightclub called The Thrill, arriving there at 12:40 a.m. The Thrill was well known for letting in under 21s to dance, and it became a popular student hangout. The girls danced for around an hour and a half before Karina said she felt sick and wanted to leave. She and Faith were picked up on security cameras leaving the club at 2:07 a.m. and Faith drove the pair home. Karina said when they got back she was sick due to drinking too much alcohol. A neighbor that lived below the girls recalled hearing banging noises just before 3 a.m. She said it sounded like thumping sounds, almost as if a heavy book bag was being dropped or furniture was being overturned. Around 3:30 a.m., records indicate that there was activity on Faith's Facebook account. 10 minutes later, at 3:40 a.m., a text message was sent from Faith's phone to the phone of Brandon Edwards, an ex-boyfriend of Karina. Some reports have suggested that Brandon was also romantically involved with Faith at one point, while others claim he was more like a big brother figure. The text message read, "Hey B, can you come over here please? Rosario needs you more. Aha. You know, please let her know you care. 3 minutes later, another text was sent from her phone to Brandon, and this one just said the word then. It is thought that Faith was correcting the word aha sent in her previous message, believing the meaning of the original message to be, "Hey B, can you come over here please? Rosario needs you more than, please let her know you care." Brandon replied to the message at 4:16 p.m. the next day, asking who it was that was texting him, but he received no text back. Karina's phone records show that she had also been trying to contact Brandon Edwards at the same time. At 3:52 a.m., another message was sent from Faith's phone. This one was to Ty Michael McNeil, Faith's on-again off-again boyfriend whom she had known since the first day of college. An extract of the message read, "I know you're probably sleeping, but I just wanted to let you know that I love you." This appeared to be the last activity on Faith's phone. At 4:25 a.m., Karina got picked up by a friend and UNCH soccer player, Jordan McCreary, leaving Faith in the apartment alone. Karina said that she left the front door unlocked and believed that Faith was asleep in bed at the time she left. Jordan drove Karina to his apartment about 5 minutes away where she then stayed. The next morning at 10:30 a.m., Karina phoned Faith, hoping to get a lift home. Faith didn't answer, so Karina called another friend named Marisol Rangel. Marisol picked Karina up and they headed back to Karina and Faith's apartment, arriving there just before 11 a.m. Seeing Faith's car parked out front, they assumed that she had simply overslept and missed her classes. They entered room 1502 and began calling out Faith's name, to which they got no response. When they headed into the bedroom, they found a truly horrific sight. Faith's partially naked body was discovered on the floor, leaning up against her bed and covered in a duvet. Her t-shirt was pulled up and over her face, and she had no clothes on from the waist down. The blood in the room was widespread, covering the walls, floor, and wardrobe, and a used tampon was found near her body. Faith had been bludgeoned to death, and an autopsy later revealed that she had died from blunt force trauma to the head. Her face was covered in cuts, and her body had been badly beaten. There were no signs of a forced entry, and unfortunately there was no surveillance footage from around the complex to determine anyone coming in or out. Karina Rosario made the call to 911. Further analysis found semen on Faith's body, but it remains undetermined as to whether this was consensual or a sexual assault. The DNA from the semen also matched the DNA found in Faith's bedroom. A pathologist was quoted as saying, "There is no gross trauma to the external genitalia, vagina, or cervix on external examination with a vaginal speculum." Faith's family believed she was raped, and Chapel Hill police believe that it was more likely than not that she was raped. A Bacardi rum bottle was collected as evidence. Tissue fragments and DNA were found on the bottle, and it was thought that this could have been the murder weapon. Next to Faith's body was a handwritten note, written across a timeout fast food bag. It said, "I'm not stupid, bitch, jealous." Although the blood covered the walls and the floor, the note on the takeout bag was clean. This suggested that the killer had spent time in the apartment after the murder, washing their hands and cleaning themselves before writing the note. Even if the note was written before the murder, the killer would still have had to spend time cleaning themselves off before placing the note in the room. A handwriting analyst, Peggy Waller, said she felt the note was written with what is referred to as disguise, and whoever wrote it was deliberately attempting to change their handwriting. Chapel Hill's chief of police, Chris Blue, said that the murder rate in Chapel Hill equates to less than one a year, and Faith's death sparked one of the largest homicide investigations in North Carolina history. Faith's death sent shockwaves through the community, and fear quickly grew among her fellow students. The university held a vigil honoring Faith with a Native American ceremony. Faith's mother, Connie, said that the family were unable to identify Faith's body, and it would be 2 years before they found out about the note left at the crime scene, or were able to read the autopsy report. All of the details surrounding Faith's death were sealed by a judge, and they would remain sealed for 2 years, despite being against Chapel Hill Police's usual policy. In November 2012, the university student newspaper The Daily Tar Heel petitioned the judge who had ordered the investigation records to be sealed. They wanted the judge to release an early search warrant in the case. However, the judge ordered that the records be sealed for another 45 days. At this time, 2 months after Faith had been killed, her cause of death had not yet been released to the public. Connie and Roland Hedgepeth told the media that their daughter's death certificate said that she had been beaten to death. In December of 2012, the FBI began assisting the Chapel Hill Police Department in the investigation, and they developed a profile of the killer. This profile stated that the murderer knew Faith and may have possibly lived close to her at one time. The FBI also believed that the killer may have been someone that took an unusual interest in the case, possibly talking to people about it and demonstrating behavioral changes. In May 2013, the court extended the seal of the evidence for a following 60 days. Also in this year, Alpha Pi Omega, the sorority that Faith had dreams of getting into, inducted her as an honorary member. In July 2014, the Chapel Hill Police Department released 300 pages of details about the case after a court ordered them to do so. The public and media were finally able to get some understanding of what had happened to Faith Hedgepeth that night. And 2 months later, the autopsy report was released. It confirmed the same as the death certificate, that she had died of blunt force trauma to the head. She was covered in cuts and bruises to her body, as well as having blood under her fingernails, showing she fought hard against her killer. According to court records, search warrants were only issued to 2 apartments, and they were both located at Hawthorne at the View. One was Faith and Karina's, and one was in a separate building. 2 sources have claimed that the woods behind Faith's apartment weren't searched, and it was noted that the officers didn't search any other apartments on the premises, didn't go door to door, and didn't bring sniffer dogs into the area. Another piece of potential evidence came from Faith's phone. On the night she was killed, she had called her friend Una Chavez 3 times, and on one of the calls left a voicemail. Una said that Faith was notorious for accidentally calling people and leaving messages that she didn't mean to. The voicemail appears to be unintelligible. People close to Faith said they heard what sounded either like an argument or a fight between Faith and other people. Others hear what simply sounds like the inside of a nightclub at 1:30 in the morning. Her father Roland said he hears his daughter in danger. TV journalist and newspaper columnist Tom Gasparoli started a blog and podcast focused on finding answers for Faith's family. He worked tirelessly to gain more information and share this with the public. He spoke to forensic audio analyst Arlo West and said, "I thought he seemed very credible to me. His transcript I thought was pretty consistent, showing an anger and some sort of verbal assault." Arlo West is the president and CEO of Creative Forensic Services, certified in audio enhancement, and has over 30 years of experience in the audio and film industry. He also specializes in pocket dial phone calls and believes he heard some notable things on the tape. He believes he heard 4 voices on the tape, 2 male and 2 female. The following transcript is what Arlo West believes could be being said on the voicemail. The timestamp shows the voicemail was left at 1:23 a.m. This meant that Faith and Karina would have been at the Thrill, and from the CCTV evidence, we know they left the club at 2:07 a.m. By all accounts at this time, everything appeared to be okay. This timestamp has been disputed by some people, including Arlo West. He said, "I found with the particular brand of phones Faith and Una had, both had issues with timestamping and voicemails being sent incorrectly at different times. The towers transmitting the cell phone signals were glitchy at best. I believe to a high degree of forensic audio certainty that timestamp is incorrect." Chapel Hill police agreed to look at West's enhanced audio version and evaluate it themselves. However, due to the timestamp of the message, police do not believe it to be a recording of the murder. Police said that the metadata associated with the call reinforces this too. 2015 marked the 3rd year since Faith's death, and her family, friends, and the community seem no closer to getting any answers. However, a year later in 2016, a sketch of the possible killer was released. Using genetic coding from the DNA at the scene, which acted almost as a blueprint, a company in Virginia were able to predict eye, hair, and skin color, freckling, face morphology, and ancestry of the alleged killer. Each trait comes with a measure of confidence. Using this data, police and the laboratory believe that this could be the face of the killer, although this does not rule out anyone else being involved. According to the image, the suspect is very strongly Native American and European mixed ancestry or Latino. Several people have been looked at quite closely in relation to the case. In the early hours of the morning, when Faith and Karina were picked up on camera leaving the club, they were spotted walking out with a male. Police checked all the footage and saw that the man had arrived at the club earlier with 3 other men. They all later provided DNA samples, of which none were a match to the crime scene. Karina's ex-boyfriend, Eric Takoy Jones, was also a heavy focus of the investigation. He reportedly resented Faith for her influence over Karina and felt that she was interfering with their relationship. During a phone call, he allegedly threatened to kill Faith if he could not resume his relationship with Karina. Upon looking at Eric's phone, police found a text that he had sent to a friend. The text was asking them to forgive him for what he was about to do. This message was sent on September 6th, just the day before Faith Hedgepeth was killed. Police also found a similarly worded message to another friend via Twitter. 3 days after Faith was murdered, Eric updated his Facebook to say, "Forgive me for all of my sins and the sins I may commit today. Protect me from the girls who don't deserve me and the ones who wish me dead today." The police seized Eric's Jeep and searched his apartment but said that nothing came up. Police described him as cooperative and said there wasn't enough evidence to arrest him, and his DNA was ultimately ruled out of the crime scene. Eric told news reporters, "From what I knew of her, she was the sweetest person in the world. If you needed her, she was there." However, although he was ruled out as a suspect, police believe that Eric does remain a person of interest, as even though the DNA did not belong to him, he may still know whose DNA was in the apartment and on Faith's body. Faith's father, Roland, has always been vocal about his feelings towards Karina. He said, "I think that Karina knows what happened to Faith." Others have expressed their concerns regarding Karina's actions after the murder, and about the 911 call she made that morning. People found it strange that not only was Marisol Rangel's name not mentioned, giving the impression that Karina was in the apartment by herself, but also that Faith's name was never uttered in the 8-minute-long phone call. Police said there were things that Karina needed to answer and clear up when it came to the 911 call. Questions as to whether or not Karina was giving the police all the information she knew and whether that information was entirely truthful. A downstairs neighbor walked into Karina and Marisol just minutes after they had found Faith's body. She said of the encounter, "People also found it questionable that Karina wanted to leave the club and go home due to feeling unwell, to then exit the apartment just hours later, leaving the door unlocked." The man that picked Karina up that morning, Jordan McCreary, had a roommate who had spoken to the investigating team on the 2018 review of the case. The roommate recalled a conversation being had about a potential speck of red on Karina's clothes when she arrived at the apartment that morning. The roommate said that the police were aware of this and searched the apartment for Karina's shirt. The Chapel Hill police confirmed this account. They said they tested the shirt, but this test was not indicative of Karina committing the crime. They also did not confirm whether the red speck was blood or not. Private investigator Hunter Glass has been working closely with Faith's family, and he also feels that more answers lie with Karina. He believes that an argument between the girls ensued at the Thrill nightclub, possibly to do with jealousy over dating or a relationship, which may have led to Faith's death. Karina Rosario moved out of North Carolina and hasn't spoken publicly about the case since. Roland Hedgepeth said she no longer takes his calls. Police sources have said that whenever they have made contact with Karina, she has been cooperative. One of Faith's old roommates, Kira, said that Faith was speaking with her high school sweetheart Alex at the same time she was dating Ty Michael McNeil and seemed conflicted about the relationships. Kira said that there always seemed to be some sort of drama with Ty and described him as having obsessive behavior when it came to Faith. She said that Faith had told her Ty had once pushed her into a wall. Faith's friend, Una Chavez, who had received the strange voicemail that night, attested to the same controlling behavior and said that Faith had told her that Ty had hit her. Ty was spoken to as part of the 2018 review of the case and said that he had texted Faith on the morning of September 6th, the evening before she was killed. He asked her if she wanted to hang out later, but he received no reply. It wasn't until around 3:52 a.m. that he got any answer from her phone. Ty believes that this was Faith texting him, but her father Roland isn't so sure and doesn't think this is how his daughter would normally type. Just days before Faith was killed, she had spoken to Una about wanting to resume her relationship with her high school sweetheart Alex, and this just didn't match up with what she had written in the text to Ty. Ty did have an alibi for the night of the murder, and he submitted a DNA sample. However, he said he doesn't know if he was given the all-clear by police, or if he simply just didn't hear back from them regarding the sample. Decorated Police Sergeant Derek Lavassa and a forensic psychologist Chris Mahandy were part of the team on the 2018 look into the case. They spoke at length about the theories and people that may have had some potential involvement. Chris Mahandy said, "There's at least 3 or 4 people here that should be considered strong persons of interest. Eric Takeaway Jones, Karina Rosario, and Ty Michael McNeil. The odd social media posts and the text from Eric, the threats he had already made towards Faith alongside the fact he lived very close to the women." Derek Lavassa discussed a theory that Eric Takeaway Jones may have brought someone back to the apartment with him, someone that wasn't as familiar with Faith, and that is potentially who the DNA belongs to. It would have meant that this person may not have been tested yet, because they are removed from Faith's social circle. The strange behavior seen from Karina on the morning Faith died, and the volatile and, according to friends, abusive and controlling relationship that Faith had with Ty. The pair found it odd and concerning that Ty had downplayed the tension and volatility in the relationship, and they also spoke about the text message sent from Faith's phone at 3:52 a.m. Chris Mahandy described the messages as way out of context for what was happening in the relationship at the time, something that Roland Hedgepeth and Una Chavez both agree with. Although nothing can be said for certain, the pair spoke about the lack of microscopic or trace evidence left outside the apartment. Derek Lavassa said he went on to say that no one else was coming to the apartment at 4:30 in the morning. She's the only one. Unless there was somebody else there with her, it's possible. The pair, alongside many others, believe Karina probably knows more than she's saying, but they do go on to discuss the seeming lack of motive. If Karina was involved, why on earth would she commit such a crime against someone who was like a sister to her? Ultimately, investigators do not feel this was a random, opportunistic crime committed by a total stranger. They believe it was carried out by someone in Faith's circle and was likely someone she knew through university. Over 2,000 people have been interviewed so far, either as suspects or people with potential information, but nobody has ever been charged. The DNA found at the scene has been compared to hundreds of samples, but sadly, none have been a match. Police say this doesn't entirely eliminate anyone though, as someone may know who the DNA belongs to, or may still be involved with Faith's death somehow. Faith's family are offering a $40,000 reward for information that leads to the arrest of the person or persons responsible for Faith's murder. Faith's legacy continues to live on with the Faith Hedgepeth Memorial Scholarship. The scholarship is offered to help Native American women enter higher education. The murder of Faith Hedgepeth remains an open and active case. The Chapel Hill Police Department welcome any information that anyone may have. What do you think about it? Tell us your thoughts in comments below. Let's continue. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the depths of unsolved mysteries. Cold cases not only challenge our understanding of the past, but also ignite our curiosity and determination for answers. Remember to subscribe to stay updated on our latest investigations. And if you have any information regarding the cases we've covered, don't hesitate to reach out. Together, we can shed light on the shadows of the past and bring closure to those who seek it. Until next time, stay vigilant, stay curious, and never stop seeking the truth.